New Orleans, early 1990s. A city shrouded in mystery and filled with rich and dark traditions. A series of gruesome ritualistic murders has the local population living in fear. The police are stumped, unable to find the culprit behind these chilling crimes. Whispers of a dangerous voodoo cult fill the air, but there is no concrete proof to be found. Can an unassuming local writer unravel the truth and bring light to these dark events? Let's dive into the enigmatic world of Gabriel Knight Sins of the Fathers, a classic point-and-click adventure game that will keep you glued to the screen till the end. Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe for more satisfying and relaxing ASMR gaming content. And now, let's start our adventure. New Orleans, the city of jazz and the city of magic. Today is the 18th of June, 1993. I'm Gabriel Knight, an out-of-luck writer, owner of a bookshop called St. George's Books, located in the French Quarter. As usual, I wake up quite late in the day after another restless night. For the past couple of weeks, I've been having horrible nightmares. They are rather confusing and creepy. When I wake up, I don't remember much. Mostly a blur of images. People burned at the stake, serpents, and a strange lion-like creature. Plus, I always have a strong feeling I'm about to die in some horrible way. After waking up, I join my one and only employee, Grace Nakimura, in the shop. Yes, I live in the back room of the shop. Grace has been working for me for the past 3 months. She's pursuing her PhD in history at Yale, but decided to take a break for the summer, and this job is a good fit for her. She really likes books, and she's quite a scholar. From the start, she has demonstrated to be capable and diligent with her duties. At the same time, she's deliberately nosy and judgmental of my life, both on a business and a personal level. Still, she's basically running all the annoying parts of the business, and she doesn't mind being paid a pittance, and not so regularly either. All in all, I wouldn't want anyone else in her position. While sipping the coffee, I look at the local newspaper. The main headline is about the ritualistic murders that have been plaguing New Orleans recently. In the past couple of months, there have been quite a few of these murders, promptly named the Voodoo murders because of the MO of each one. Some traces and elements point to the use of typical voodoo paraphernalia and symbols. Whether they are fake or real is still up for debate. What is certain is that New Orleans has quite a bit of magical stuff going on, and there are indeed some active voodoo practices in the city. That's why I was attracted to these murders and decided to look into them, possibly to gather ideas for my next book. While reading the newspaper, Grace informs me that 2 people called me. One is Mosley, my old friend and detective with the New Orleans Police Department. He has left some pictures for me at at the front desk of the police station. The other call was from someone in Germany named Wolfgang Ritter, but that name doesn't mean anything to me. In 1993, calling overseas is really expensive, so unless there's a good reason, I won't call him back. He'll call again if it's important. I also asked Grace to do some research about voodoo in New Orleans, specifically interesting places to visit. Two of these are the local voodoo museum and a shop called Dixieland Drug Store. The schedule for the day seems pretty busy. I guess it's time to get a move on. The first stop is the police station. As promised, Mosley left an envelope with 2 photographs at the front desk. The first is of one of the victims, and it's quite gruesome. The poor guy's body shows deep cuts in his chest, as if his heart was ripped out. The other picture is of Mosley himself. He thinks I will include him in the book, which won't be the case, but for now I won't tell him. While at the station, I learned that my friend is out at a crime scene. Another voodoo murder. Unfortunately, the officer can't tell me what it is exactly. It's confidential, he says. I call it gatekeeping. I leave the police station and wander around the French Quarter, thinking about how to find out where the crime scene might be. Meanwhile, I pass by the Voodoo Museum and the store Grace mentioned, but they're both closed today. I'll check back tomorrow. After some aimless wandering, I stop in Jackson Square, a popular place in the Quarter. The square is just in front of the majestic St. Louis Cathedral, and it's pretty crowded. There's people relaxing on the grass, a couple of small jazz and cajun bands offering some entertainment. There's also a lone drummer beating a haunting rhythm on an African drum. There are quite a few of them around the Quarter. More interesting though, there's a police officer with his bike. Passing by him, I can almost hear from his radio a conversation between what could be the police central and an ambulance. Could that be the ambulance headed towards the crime scene? I cannot quite grasp what they are saying though. There's lots of static, and I'm too far away. If only I could get hold of the radio for a minute or so and listen more closely. The opportunity quickly materializes. A mime is going around annoying people by mimicking their movements, and luckily for me, he decides to mock the police officer. The officer is not pleased at all and starts chasing him around, leaving his bike and, more importantly, the radio unattended. I quickly get closer and tune in. As I suspected, the ambulance is asking for directions to the crime scene. And now I have a location. It's on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, along Lakeside Drive, south of the country clubs. Off we go then. I arrive at the scene right after the ambulance. Detective Mosley is not pleased to see me, but he quickly realizes that it could be good for the book to let me look around, especially at the victim. The scene is gruesome. The victim's chest has been ripped open and their heart removed. Even if the voodoo angle could be fake, they are definitely put manages to steal my heart. Mosley quickly notices my altered status, and just as quickly informs me that she's Malia Getty, the heir of a really wealthy family, about as far out of reach for me as the moon. Of course, I don't listen to him at all, because A. She's beautiful, B. I have my ways with women, C. The out of reach concept makes me want to meet her even more, and D. If she's a regular at the nearby country club, she might have heard or seen something. After all, the crime scene is right by the side of the road. In the meantime, the ambulance has finished loading the body, so they all leave. I can now freely look around and take notes for the book. I immediately notice that near the body there are strange symbols, probably a pattern drawn in the sand. Most of it has been smeared, but a part is still visible, so I decide to copy it in my sketchbook. A few meters away, I also see an indentation in the ground, as if a heavy object was placed there. Upon closer inspection, I notice something shining. Looking closer, I see a snake scale, an iridescent blue snake scale, to be precise. Judging by the displaced sand, the snake must have been quite big too. I decide to take the snake scale with me. I remember reading that snake scales are rather unique, a sort of fingerprint for snakes. No two are alike. Before leaving, I get closer to the lake shore and notice a patch of what could be clay. For no real reason besides the fact that I can, I take a lump of clay and put it in my pocket. It's my thing, going around with a lump of wet and dripping clay, all right? I head back to the shop and ask Grace to look up Malia Getty for me and get an address. Time to up my game, I'd say. It's been quite a fruitful day after all, and it's time to close the shop. Hopefully, tonight I will get a refreshing sleep with no nightmares. Of course, that was just wishful thinking. Same nightmare again. Someone burned at the stake, snakes, and an animal. The image is clearer this time. I think it's a leopard, not a lion. And of course, that impending feeling of doom. I wake up and I join Grace in the shop, still thinking about the nightmare. I browse the newspaper, but there's nothing interesting. Just another article about the Voodoo murders, implying the Voodoo angle is fake. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that. While browsing, I ask Grace if she found Malia's address. Of course she did. She's very efficient, even too much. She immediately lets me know that Malia descends from a very wealthy family with a variety of investments. They own 3 hospitals and are well connected in the financial and political landscape of New Orleans. In short, I have no chances with her and should look elsewhere, maybe lower, closer to my level. Grace, never change. Anyway, I get Malia's address and add meeting her to my already busy schedule for the day, which includes meeting Mosley, stopping by the Voodoo Museum, and a Dixieland drugstore. My first stop is the Voodoo Museum. As I enter, I'm immediately struck by the intense smell of candles and incense. The whole room is filled with voodoo paraphernalia, symbols, and strange objects, which I'm pretty sure have been actually used in various moments in time. Some of these objects are really frightening and disturbing. Skulls, severed animal parts, even a small coffin. What strikes me most is the presence of Christian symbols like crosses, a bit blasphemous if you ask me. Among the numerous objects, I notice a leaflet of a certain magician moonbeam, a voodoo yin, whatever that is. She seems to perform small incantations and readings. Worth a look as well, I'd say. In a corner of the museum, I notice a snake in a plexiglass cage. A python, nonetheless. I wish I could check the color of its scales, but I doubt the owner would let me. Besides, I'm not too keen to get up close and personal with a live python. Speaking of the owner, he seems quite a character. His name is Dr. John, a 6-foot tall, broad-shouldered African-American man with a deep, booming voice. He seems friendly, but there is something unsettling about him that I can't quite figure out. Since I'm here to learn about voodoo, I ask him a few questions, and he is quite enlightening. Voodoo is a religion that comes from Africa and is a mixture of African tribal religions and Anglo religions like Catholicism and Protestantism. Voodoo arrived in the West Indies via the slave trade, first settling in places like Haiti and Santo Domingo, then reaching the mainland United States. By the 1830s, a powerful voodoo priestess emerged in New Orleans, the so-called voodoo queen Marie Laveau. She dominated the voodoo scene and somewhat the city of New Orleans for decades. At her death, her daughter continued her legacy. Some rumors suggest that it was not her daughter, but Marie Laveau herself, who found a way to extend her life and keep her youthful looks. Laveau's voodoo legacy is so strong that she is still venerated today by various voodoo practitioners. That's really fascinating. I also learn that Laveau's tomb is at St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. I might stop by there as well, maybe tomorrow. After this deep dive into voodoo history, I decide to leave and visit the Dixieland drugstore. On my way there, I stop by Miss Magician Moonbeam, but she's out of town for the next few days. I'll check back later. As I enter the shop, I see the owner busy with an old lady he refers to as Madame Casano. The old lady has a small yapping dog that's rather annoying. Despite the dog, I eavesdrop on their conversation, and it turns out to be quite intriguing. Madame Casano is troubled by sleepless nights and stomach aches, convinced they are caused by evil spells cast by her neighbors and random strangers. She's asking the owner for remedies, as her prayers to the Virgin Mary haven't worked. The owner is more than willing to sell her various oils and powders to dispel the evil. It seems Madame Casano is a regular customer, not afraid to use voodoo magic to solve her troubles, despite being very religious. I'm sure it could be interesting to interview her for the book. While they talk, I look around, and I'm mesmerized by the sheer amount of overpriced junk on sale. Oils, charms, powders, animal parts, and more. There's also a promotion for the upcoming St. John's Eve celebration. Spend $50 or more and get a free bottle of Master Gambling Oil or Lover Come Back to Me oil. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. After a couple of minutes, the old lady leaves, and I can finally ask the owner some questions. I learned his name is Willie Walker, but not much else. He seems rather cagey, and he's not inclined to share information. When I ask about the St. John's Eve celebration, he just says it's important in Voodoo, but he doesn't know why. Come on, Willie. You're running a shop filled with Voodoo paraphernalia. You give detailed advice on countering spells, and you said your family has lived in New Orleans for generations. Yet you know nothing about a major Voodoo celebration. Something smells fishy. Things get worse when I ask about Madame Casano. He becomes defensive and upset, refusing to share any information. Another not in the job description task for Grace, I suppose. The only breakthrough comes when I casually ask him about the Voodoo murders. Just mentioning them startles him. He quickly utters the words Capri Sancour. It sounds French, but I have no idea what it means. When I ask him about it, he denies he said anything. Go figures. I think this guy knows a lot, but I won't get anywhere with him. At least he gave me a couple of leads to pursue, albeit involuntarily. In the next episode. Mosley, are you saying all the murders have the exact same MO? The victim's heart has been ripped out, a strange pattern drawn next to the body, and there's plenty of blood, all kinds, including animal blood. That's really disturbing. Time to meet Malia. I'm sure she won't refuse to speak to an officer on official police business. Madame Casano knows a lot about Voodoo, but suggesting that Marie Laveau is just a front for the real Voodoo Queen, that sounds far-fetched. I'm Gabriel Knight, a bookshop owner and aspiring writer. New Orleans is plagued by a series of ritualistic murders known as the Voodoo murders. I started investigating them to gather inspiration for my new book. I enlisted the help of Grace, my one and only employee, and Detective Mosley, my old friend. So far, I've only got nightmares and gathered general information about the widespread voodoo practices in the city. The only silver lining is that I'm about to meet a beautiful woman who will make this investigation more interesting, I'm sure. Miss Malia Getty. Before we continue the story, remember to like and subscribe for more ASMR gaming content. I still have quite a few things to do today. It's now time to visit my old friend, Detective Mosley. On my way to the police station, I think about Malia and savor the moment we'll finally meet face to face, alone. Then it hits me. I have no business meeting her. People like her usually have scheduled appointments and don't meet random strangers. Telling her I'm researching material for a book won't be enough. If only I had some official business. Well, she saw me at a crime scene yesterday, so she might think I'm with the police. I just need a badge. Dear Mosley, your badge will be instrumental in the start of the best love story ever. How can I get hold of it, though? Asking him is out of the question. I know he keeps it in his jacket. Oh well, I'll figure something out when I meet him. I join Mosley in his office and start asking about the murders to get a better picture of the situation. So far, there have been 7 murders, the first happening 8 weeks ago. They all have the same MO. The victim's heart was ripped from the chest, using a ritualistic knife, given the wavy pattern left on the flesh around the wound. No hearts have been found. God knows what they do with them. Around the victim, there's a smudged pattern drawn with flour. Besides the victim's blood, there's plenty of chicken blood, feathers, and sometimes goat blood too. Also, there are plenty of small fibers, the weirdest one being leopard fur. Leopard? Interesting. The police believes at least 20 people participate in the rituals, but no one ever sees or hears anything. Scary stuff. Mosley allows me to look at the photos of the partial patterns from the other crime scenes, but I can't make a copy. Or can I? With the excuse of taking pictures with Mosley for the book, I distract both him and the police photographer. I sneak out of his office and quickly make a copy of the police file using the photocopier. Now I just need to find someone who can reconstruct the whole pattern from the partials. There's one more thing left to do. Borrow Mosley badge. The chance easily materializes. It's hot in the office, so my friend has removed his jacket, and I see the badge sticking out of a pocket. I ask him if he can bring me a cup of coffee, and while he's gone, I'll take the badge. I feel a bit guilty, but just a little bit. We chat a few more minutes, but then it's time to hit the road and meet my beautiful Malia. I arrive at the Getty Mansion in the Garden District 20 minutes later. It is indeed a beautiful place that oozes. We got a lot of money from every evenly trimmed blade of grass. But whatever, no one can resist Gabriel Knight's charm. I introduce myself as Detective Mosley to the butler, letting him know I'm on official police business. And voila, I'm granted an audience with Miss Getty. We start a conversation casually. I learn she's a very busy woman, managing the family's financial obligations all on her own. She's an only child. Her mother recently passed away, and she never knew her father. Luckily for me, I also learn she's single. It seems managing the family wealth leaves her little time for anything else. Oh, poor Malia, let me help you with that. I ask her about what happened on the shores of Lake Pontchartrain, but she doesn't know anything. As the conversation flows, I decide to make my move. I compliment her looks, her deep, goldish brown eyes, her fantastic physical appearance, and, oh boy, it doesn't work. My behavior confirms her suspicion. It's unlikely I'm with the police. Besides, she remembers Mosley as the other guy from yesterday, so I have no business being here. Okay, time to come clean. I tell her my real name and that I'm working with Detective Mosley for a book I'm writing. That's not working either. As a last-ditch effort, I confess that I went this far just to meet her again because she's so beautiful. Unsurprisingly, none of this works. I'm just lucky she lets the butler escort me out without calling the real police. Oh well, it was worth a shot, I suppose. I slowly drive back to the French Quarter and stop in Jackson Square. I'm disappointed my clever plan didn't work. Yet, for a brief moment, Malia seemed not indifferent to me. She seems to spend a lot of time alone. Maybe me making a fool of myself might have moved something. While I'm pondering this, I notice an artist drawing St. Louis Cathedral. His sketch is really well done, a very precise depiction of the building. I wonder if he could reconstruct the pattern from the murder scenes if I give him the partials. Convincing the guy involves a convoluted series of actions, requiring me to seek the help of a street tap dancer, use an old $20 gift certificate for my bookshop, and buy a hot dog. Anyway, in the end, the artist is more than willing to reconstruct the pattern and assures me it will be ready for tomorrow. That's just great. It's getting late, so I decide to go back to the shop. As I arrive, Grace is leaving for the day. I just have time to ask her if she can find the address of a certain Madame Casano. She reluctantly agrees, thinking I'm pursuing another hot catch, but I assure her she's just a lovely old lady in her 70s, and it's for professional purposes. Grace doesn't look too convinced though. Maybe she knows me better than I do. Anyway, it's time to go to bed. For another restless night. Same nightmare, same feeling of dread. It's starting to become boring, to be honest. It's a new day, and I join Grace in the main shop. She's curious to know how it went with Malia, or rather, how big of a failure it was. But I won't give her the satisfaction of gloating over my missteps. So I reply vaguely, giving the impression it went well. A bit disappointed, she hands me a page of the white pages, listing 4 Casano names. I'll have to call each one to figure out which one is correct. I quickly browse the newspaper, but there's nothing interesting, aside from a small article about a certain Professor Hartridge giving a lecture on African religions today at Tulane University. Isn't Voodoo a derivation of African religions? I should attend that lecture. Luckily, it's late in the day, so I have time to run other errands first. While I'm reading, Grace informs me that Mosley called. They caught a suspect who might know something about the murders and are about to interrogate him. I should drop by. It might be good stuff for the book. A couple of minutes later, I leave the shop and head towards the police station. As I arrive, I notice a drummer outside the building. This is rather unusual. This is definitely not a tourist spot. Anyway, I join Mosley in his office right on time to be scolded for borrowing his badge. But he's a good guy and doesn't dwell much on it. Besides, there's a suspect to interrogate. His name is Crash, a low-level pusher and police informant. Mosley is convinced he knows something about the murders. Unfortunately, either Mosley isn't good at interrogating people, or Crash is too scared to say anything. Probably the latter. He keeps referring to they. They know everything. They have ears everywhere. He's really worried they saw him when the police picked him up. He's also mumbling about sending a message to them to let them know he didn't say anything. The interrogation is useless. The police can only keep Crash in custody for 24 hours. So, tomorrow he'll be around the French Quarter again, I'm sure. Maybe I'll have a better luck with him. There's still time before the lecture, so I go back to Jackson Square to check if the artist has my reconstructed pattern. And indeed he does. He gladly gives it back, as he gets creeped out just looking at it. Oh well, whatever. Now I need someone to interpret it. Maybe the university professor giving the lecture. On my way to the university, I stop at St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 to look at Marie Laveau's tomb. I ask the groundskeeper for information, and it seems Laveau's tomb is frequently visited by devotees who leave various offerings. Animal parts, even human parts. Oh dear. They also write on her tomb. I notice what looks like a message on the side wall. It's written in a strange coded alphabet. I decide to copy it down, hoping to find someone who can translate it. Maybe Dr. John from the museum could help. The groundskeeper says he visits the tomb often. I decide to walk around the cemetery, since my family tomb is here too. Unfortunately, both my parents died in a car accident when I was a kid. It was a tragic event. As I approach the tomb, I notice Malia. What a coincidence. Her family tomb is here as well. Without hesitation, I give it another shot. I approach her and tell her I can't stop thinking about her. Unexpectedly, that seems to work. She looks far less secure and stone-cold than yesterday. She starts mumbling feeble excuses about her family being very traditional, that she's not in a position to get involved, and that we live in two different worlds. But she doesn't outright reject me. I tell her she could come and see my world. I give her the address of my shop and say I'll be waiting for her tonight. She looks frightened and upset, then runs away. I might have blown it again. Oh well. Time for the lecture. at the university, I guess. I arrived just on time, and it turns out to be quite a deep dive into voodoo and its origins. Professor Hartridge has a monotonic voice, and given my restless nights, I unfortunately fall asleep after a few minutes. Nonetheless, I grasp some basic concepts. Voodoo priestesses, called Mamaloa, are quite powerful, far more than male priests. During a ceremony, the spirit they summon, called Loa, possesses the priestess, or more precisely, she is ridden by the Loa. When these spirits are invoked, they grant tremendous powers to the Mamaloa. Among the other information I catch before falling asleep is that each tribe has a voodoo temple where they gather regularly, and also each ceremony involves various objects depending on the ritual's purpose. One of these is a knife with a wavy blade. Interestingly, all the victims presented wounds with a wavy pattern. Another object is a small coffin called Seki Madole, which looks exactly like the small coffin I saw at the Voodoo Museum. I'm wondering if that has been used recently. Are you hiding something, Dr. John? The lecture goes on for 30 more minutes, but by then I'm fully asleep. As the lecture ends, Professor Hartridge is still hanging around for questions, so I decide to approach him. First, I asked if he knows what Caprice encore means. It turns out it's French for goat without horns, which in Voodoo means a human sacrifice. Oh God. Usually animals are sacrificed in Voodoo rituals, but the Loa can ask for a human sacrifice. I'm starting to think the voodoo used in the murders is very real. The confirmation comes seconds later when I show the professor the reconstructed pattern called Veve. Seeing it, his excitement goes through the roof. He confirms the pattern is authentic and not just a random drawing. He quickly makes a copy of it because he wants to study its origins, as different tribes have their own distinctive veves. He then rushes to his office and lets me know he will call when he has more information. I go back to the shop. Time to call some random strangers and find the real Madame Casano. After a couple of failed attempts, I finally recognize the old lady's voice on the other end of the phone. Unfortunately, she's not keen to talk to strangers, and her dog's continuous yapping makes the conversation difficult. But at least I learned that her dog's name is Castro. That gives me an idea. I call the local veterinary clinic to check if Madame Casano is their client. Indeed she is, and mentioning that I'm worried about Castro missing this week's dancing lesson, the vet is more than willing to share her address. Time to visit Madame Casano. Unfortunately, the visit is short. She's so suspicious of strangers that she doesn't let me inside and quickly sends me away. I don't blame her. I wouldn't invite myself in looking the way I do now. Maybe with a little touch-up, I could have better luck. I remember Madame Casano being rather religious, so maybe if I dress up as a priest. I have all the materials in my room, so a few minutes later I'm back as Father McLaughlin. It works like a charm. She's more than willing to let in the the new priest in the parish for a chat and maybe a blessing. The conversation turns out to be rather interesting. Her family has been in New Orleans since 1750, and she knows quite a bit about voodoo. Her great-grandmother, in fact, was an acolyte of Marie Laveau herself. Fascinating. According to Madame Casanova, there's voodoo everywhere in the city. Everyone is involved, and people can curse you on the street or in the stores just like that. But she knows the magic to counter all those evil spells. That sounds pretty paranoid if you ask me. Things get really interesting when I casually ask about Capri Sancor. She knows it means a human sacrifice. Not only that, her great-grandmother saw the ritual carried out. It was demanded by the real Voodoo Queen. According to Madame Casanova, Marie Laveau was just a front. Behind her, the real Voodoo Queen has been running the voodoo for the last 200 years. She knows there's a secret temple somewhere in the city, but she's not sure where. All she can hear are the drums resounding at night that keep her from sleeping. At that point, she wants to show me something secret and powerful, a silver bracelet shaped like a snake that belonged to her great-grandmother. Apparently, it was used to gain access to the real voodoo ceremonies. Interesting. That might come in handy. With a quick thinking, I ask if I can hold it to bless it. While doing that, I take out the clay I picked up from the lake shore and make a mold. Now I just have to find someone able to make a bracelet for me. I'd say this conversation with Madame Casanova was quite a success. Given it's already the end of the day, I head back to the shop. Grace is about to leave, so I quickly ask her if she could research the reconstructed Vevey, specifically if it comes up in any old local newspaper. As I'm about to go to sleep, I hear Grace discussing with someone just outside the shop. She's trying vehemently to send this person away, since the shop is closed. But then I recognize Malia's voice. Yes, my clever plan worked. She's here to see me. I quickly get outside and let Malia in. Oh boy, what a night. Let's just say I did not have any nightmares this time. Au contraire. In the next episode. What? They've closed the Voodoo murders case? I must speak with Mosley and convince him to reopen it. The voodoo is real, no doubts about it. Interesting. The guy calling me from Germany is my long-lost great-uncle. He claims our family has been fighting evil since the dawn of time. What? Of course, my long-lost uncle is a weirdo. Previously on Gabriel Knight. Malia, I know we come from two different worlds, but let's give this a try. Professor Hartridge, are you saying the voodoo used in the murders is real? I better make a copy of this silver bracelet. It might come in handy if I need to join this secret voodoo cult. Crash is afraid of something and won't talk to the police. Maybe I'll have better luck when they release him in 24 hours. Before we continue the story, remember to like and subscribe for more ASMR gaming content. As the morning breaks, I join Grace in the shop. Today she's particularly quiet, not picking on my uncombed hair or shabby looks. I smell jealousy. As I sip my coffee, I notice a strange guy staring through one of the shop windows. He looks like one of those drummers around the quarter, and he's giving me the creeps. Considering that Madame Casano mentioned hearing drums at night, I suspect these drummers are involved with a secret voodoo cult. Anyway, I asked Grace about the research I requested yesterday. Interesting, she found an old newspaper article from 1810 about a murder. Alongside the article is a picture of a partial pattern that looks very close to the reconstructed vevey. Could this really be the same voodoo cult operating in New Orleans since the beginning? This is frightening. A cult that old doesn't go unnoticed by chance. The number of people involved, especially in high positions, might be huge. Oh God, in what predicament have I ended up? Just to make things more interesting, I quickly browsed the newspaper to learn that the Voodoo murders case has been closed. It seems the voodoo was all fake, and the murders were the result of an underworld cartel fight, which is now over. I'm not convinced. I believe the voodoo is real and something is going on. I bet Mosley was forced to close the case. I must speak with him. Before putting down the newspaper, I noticed an advert for a jeweler named Sam Springleton. Interesting. I was just looking for one. I better visit him as well. Before I leave, Grace lets me know that my grandma called and that I should stop by her place to go through my father's things. Oh yes, I was meant to do that ages ago. Also, Wolfgang Ritter from Germany called again, claiming now he is a relative. He left a number to call too. I'll think about that later. It's time to get a move on and have a chat with Detective Mosley. As I enter his office, Mosley can clearly see I'm not pleased with the decision to close the case. He confirms my suspicion. It wasn't his decision. The order came from the top brass, and he's not happy either. Anyway, he says there's a way to reopen the case. I just have to prove to him there's a legitimate voodoo cult in New Orleans, that they are a threat, and give him a lead. Yeah, easier said than done. Well, I'm already investigating the cult, but so far I have only vague leads and too little evidence. I need to dig deeper. While driving back to the French Quarter, I decide to stop by Grandma's. It's been quite a while since I last visited. She's always been so nice to me and really protective too. Who wouldn't be? She practically raised me by herself. Both my parents died in a car accident when I was only 8 years old. By then, Gran was already a widow, as my granddad died almost 20 years earlier in a car accident as well. Not much luck going around the Knight family, it seems. We chat about my father and granddad, Interestingly, she mentions how both were affected by weird and haunting nightmares. That's really odd, since I've been having those same nightmares for quite a while now. There must be something wrong with my family. I then moved to the attic to go through my father's stuff. An old clock that probably belonged to my granddad grabs my attention. I notice a small drawer, like a secret compartment. I fiddle with it and manage to open it. Inside there's an old black and white photo of 3 men with Schloss Ritter 1925 written on the back. Schloss. My German is rusty, but I think it means castle. Besides that, there are a bunch of letters addressed to Heinz Ritter, from a certain Wilhelm Ritter from Rittersberg, Germany. I can't read much German, but one word is repeated over and over. Schattenjäger. No idea what that means. Maybe Grandma could shed some light. And indeed she does. It seems my granddad's real name was Heinz Ritter, but he changed it to Harrison Knight when he moved to the US in the 1920s. It looks like he was fleeing from his family, or rather from something about his family that he didn't want to be part of. Thinking about it, the guy calling me from Germany is Wolfgang Ritter. Could he be Granddad's brother or a cousin? He did say we were related. If it's true, then my family owns a castle. With my luck, it's probably a pile of rubble, and they're just contacting me to share the repair bill, because, we're family. Oh dear, I hope not. It's probably time to call this Wolfgang Ritter and hear what he has to say. He confirms that he is my great-uncle, my granddad's brother, and that he had premonitions about me. He warns I'm in danger and should leave New Orleans today to join him in Rittersberg. Yeah, no way I'm leaving. Besides, I have no money to travel. He goes on about the duties of our family and that there's much to learn about our past. To be honest, he sounds like a madman. Of course he does. Was there any chance he was a sane, long-lost relative, just eager to tell me he's bequeathing me all his fortunes? Anyway, I agreed to read a journal from one of our ancestors that he will send via overnight delivery. Probably the story of another Ritter madman. The call was far less exciting than I thought. A bit disappointed, I move back to the front shop and notice Bruno is here. He's the florist next door, and he takes the opportunity to ask if I'll finally sell him the beautiful painting hanging on the wall near the cash register. It is indeed a beautiful yet haunting piece, the last one my father painted. With a bit of sadness, I give in. $100 and the sale is done. Bruno is ecstatic. Grace, however, gives me a look that could incinerate me on the spot. Sorry, Grace, but there are things I need to do, and I need the cash. St. John's Eve is coming up, a magical night in Voodoo. I bet the Voodoo cartel will hold a ceremony, and I need a costume to participate. And I know a place filled with voodoo stuff where I can buy one, the Dixieland drugstore. I quickly suicide mask on sale for $100. Exactly what I needed. Also, since I'm spending more than $50, I can benefit from their special offer. I can choose one of 2 free gifts, a gambling oil or a potion for luck with the ladies. I opt for the gambling oil for obvious reasons. To be honest, I should quit all this voodoo nonsense and hit Las Vegas. While driving around, I remember the advert for a jeweler named Sam Springleton. Maybe he can reconstruct the bracelet from the mold I made. I find him at the nearby pub, playing a cursed game of chess against his friend Marcus. It looks like Sam hasn't won a single game against Marcus for the past 20 years. It must be a world record. Unfortunately, he seems uninterested in the bracelet until he finally wins. Luckily, I learned from the barman that Sam is into voodoo stuff, small potions, charms, etc. And it just so happens I have a gambling oil with me. I managed to grab Sam's attention and show him the oil. With no hesitation, he gulps a bit of it and goes back to his game of chess. And what do you know? Half an hour later, the game is over and he won. To say he's jubilant is an understatement. Since he owes me one, he agrees to reconstruct the bracelet from the mold for free. An hour later, he returns with my new serpent bracelet. What a day so far. But it is nothing compared to what I'm about to witness in a few minutes. On my way back to the shop, I decided to stop in Jackson Square. If I'm correct, Crash should be out of police custody, and maybe he'll share some of his secrets with me. I spot Crash wandering around the square, but as I try to approach him, he quickly moves away. After a couple of failed attempts, I decide to watch him from afar. I notice he gets closer to the ever-present drummer in the square, leans over, whispers something, and then goes into St. Louis Cathedral. I knew it. The drummers around the French Quarter are somehow involved with a cartel. I follow Crash into the cathedral. He's sitting on a pew and he doesn't look good at all. Pale, sweating, his voice feeble and trembling. At first, he doesn't want to talk to me, saying I wouldn't understand since I'm not into real voodoo. But showing him the bracelet does the trick. He's now convinced I'm into the real stuff. He pulls up his shirt, revealing a tattoo of the same snake. Now I can ask him some questions. Unfortunately, he's a very small fish and doesn't know much. He confirms that the voodoo cartel controls everything in the city and that they're really dangerous. He knows they have a secret base, a temple, somewhere underground in the French Quarter, but he has no idea where. He also confirms my suspicion. The drummers, to be precise, are the eyes and ears of the cartel. They see everything, report back, and relay messages. How? With the drums, of course. It's a code. As he's telling me this, he starts choking and going out of breath. Then, all of a sudden, he dies, right there, in front of my eyes. cartel has eliminated a liability, apparently. Poor bastard. Before leaving and alerting the police, I copy his tattoo. I might need it if I want to attend one of their secret ceremonies. It's getting late, so I decide to head back to the shop. Grace is about to leave, and I just have time to ask her to find anything about Radha drums. It's time to go to sleep. Or maybe not. I call Malia, and a few minutes later, I'm at her place. It's June 22nd, and today I'm joining Grace from the front door rather than the back of the shop. While reading the newspaper and sipping my coffee, I glance at Grace. She looks even more jealous today. Oh well, she had her chances. But actually, it's not like that. The package from Germany containing my ancestor's diary has arrived, and Grace, just by chance, opened it and read it. She's now really worried about me. She fears something similar to what happened to my ancestor could happen to me. That took me by surprise. Grace does care about me. But what does the diary say that's so concerning? It details the events that happened in Charleston, South Carolina in 1693. Gunther Ritter, a renowned witch hunter, is called by the mayor to investigate a series of murders. He immediately recognizes they involved powerful voodoo magic. During his investigation, Gunther meets and falls in love with a slave, a beautiful woman called Tetelo. Their love and passion are pure and strong. But things take a wrong turn some weeks later. Gunther sets up a trap to catch the murderers. Disguised, he lets them kidnap him. While they are about to perform the voodoo ritual and kill him, Gunther's men intervene and arrest all involved. One of them, likely the leader, is wearing a leopard fur mask. When Gunther removes it, he's shocked. It's Tetelo. Gunther is devastated, but he cannot do anything. She and the others must be brought to justice. For the mayor and the town, though, justice means burning them at the stake. Gunther cannot stop it. His relationship with Tetelo is revealed, and any attempt to stop the execution is seen as the result of a spell she cast on him. The execution begins. Gunther watches as the fire starts burning everyone. Tetelo screams at Gunther, accusing him of betraying her. She then calls her Loa to grant her power. Gunther takes out his talisman. The talisman is a powerful artifact given to the Ritter's family centuries ago, granting witch hunters the strength to counter evil. Gunther points the talisman at Tetelo, hoping to save her from the flames. Unexpectedly, the talisman power fuses with Tetelo's Loa, and hell breaks loose. Lightnings strike the field and everyone around. Tetelo and her people are freed, while the executioners, including Gunther, are left half dead. Tetelo curses Gunther for betraying her, grabs the talisman, and disappears into the woods. This is indeed concerning and frightening. My family has investigated voodoo murders murders before and got its ass kicked. We also lost the only artifact that can protect us during this witch hunting. Oh dear. According to my uncle, I have the duty to take up the family business. Given the circumstances, I would give this proposal a hard pass. Now I understand why Granddad left Germany and tried to start anew in the US. Besides, these voodoo murders have nothing to do with counter and witch hunting. I'm just researching material for my book. If it goes well, it will be a bestseller. Despite everything, the material I'm gathering is really good. As I finish reading the diary, the phone rings. It's Professor Hartridge, who has finished his research. He's so excited that he can barely finish a sentence. He frantically says something about the Agri tribe and a wheel within a wheel. I can't understand anything he's saying, so I decide to meet him at the university right away. As I'm about to leave, Grace gives me a book on radadrums. With it, I will finally be able to decipher the messages they are sending. I arrive at the university and head straight to Hartridge's office. I enter and he looks lost in his thoughts. But when I call to him, he doesn't respond. Has he fallen asleep? Unfortunately not. When I touch him to wake him up, his lifeless body collapses against the chair. It looks like he choked to death, like a crash yesterday. I recognize the signs. The cartel got to him too. He must have uncovered something important, but what exactly? He wasn't clear when he called, and it looks like the assassins took his notes. But wait, they only ripped out some sheets from his notebook. Using the oldest trick in the DIY detective manual, I use a pencil to make the indentation on the blank page more visible. The words authentic, Benin, and agree stand out. Benin, as in the Republic of Benin, the African state. Is that where the Agri tribe, responsible for the murders, comes from? Poor Professor Hartridge. I feel a bit responsible for what happened to him. But how could I have known they would go after a university professor? This cartel is really dangerous. I must be very careful. While driving back to the French Quarter, I wonder what to do next, and suddenly I remember to check on Magician Moonbeam. She must be back by now. I ring her doorbell, and yes, she's home. Her living room looks like a fortune teller stand at a local fair. But whatever, she might shed some more light on the voodoo going on in New Orleans. We chat broadly about voodoo, and she seems quite knowledgeable. Regarding the voodoo murders, even if she just read the newspapers, she's pretty sure the voodoo is real and not faked at all. She wholeheartedly advises me to stay away from it, recognizing the signs of the darkest and most powerful type of voodoo being used. I wonder if she's involved and knows more than she lets on, but my hunch says she isn't part of the secret cartel. Besides, I noticed she owns a python with brown scales. Definitely not a match with the snake from the lake. We also discuss St. John's Eve. she confirms it's a special and powerful night in Voodoo. Many Voodoo churches nowadays hold functions in their buildings, but in the old days they held ceremonies in the wild. They wore animal masks, had a huge bonfire, and danced. Sometimes these ceremonies were held in the swamp in Bayou Saint John or at Lake Pontchartrain. Interesting. I'm wondering if the secret cartel might do something similar tomorrow night. Finally, I show her the coded message I copied from Marie Laveau's tomb. She recognizes the code and gladly translates it for me. It reads, DJ, conclave, tonight, bring fresh cash. DJ, as in Dr. John, the owner of the Voodoo Museum. Interesting. In the next episode, I know the secret voodoo cult will hold a conclave to celebrate St. John's Eve. I need to find out where they are meeting and join them. But how? This snake scale matches the one from the lake. I have a lead on the secret voodoo cult. Previously on Gabriel Knight. They closed the Voodoo murders case. I can't believe it. There's a secret voodoo cult, and they are dangerous. They killed before, and they are killing now. I have to convince Mosley to reopen the case. Wolfgang Ritter from Germany. What? He is my great uncle. This is becoming weird. My family has been fighting evil since the dawn of time, and now I have to pick up the family business. No way. Besides, the only artifact protecting us while witch hunting was stolen centuries ago. Yeah, I'm not getting involved in that. Before we continue the story, remember to like and subscribe for more ASMR gaming content. After the enlightening conversation with Magician Moonbeam, against any better judgment, I decided to drop by the museum again to see if I can learn anything else from Dr. John, also known as DJ. And it's no surprise it was a bad decision. The museum door is ajar, but the lights are all off. As I enter, I feel I'm being watched. A few seconds later, I feel something touching my right shoulder. It's the python. It's out of its cage, and it is slowly coiling around my neck and shoulders. I'm slowly choking, desperately grasping for air. I move my only free arm frantically and manage to hit the room fan switch. Its rattling and loud noise scares the serpent off, and I literally breathe a sigh of relief. A moment later, Dr. John appears out of nowhere, letting me know the museum is closed and I shouldn't be here. He doesn't seem concerned at all that his snake almost killed me. He simply adds, I should better put up a closed sign next time, in his deep and unbothered voice. Honestly, if he wasn't double my size and perfectly able to squash my skull like a ripe fruit with his bare hands, I would punch him in the face, right here, right now. You're lucky, Dr. John. You're so damn lucky. After this near-death experience, I decided to go back to the shop to relax for a second. Maybe hearing Grace pick on me might cheer me up a bit. As I enter, Grace notices I look really pale, like I've seen a ghost. Well, I almost became a ghost. While telling her all the details, she notices something on my cheek. It's a snake scale. Maybe this incident might turn out to be a lucky accident. And indeed it was. As I look closer at the scale, I realize it's a perfect match with the one from the lake. That python was at the crime scene 5 days ago. Dr. John was at the crime scene. I knew it. He's part of the cartel. I believe I now have everything Mosley needs to reopen the case. I have the article from 1810 showing the same veve are reconstructed from the current crime scenes. They have killed in the past, and they are killing now. They are a threat. I have the note from Professor Hartridge that proves the voodoo is real and not faked at all. And finally, I have a lead to pursue. Dr. John from the museum. As I show Mosley all this evidence, he is finally convinced and decides to reopen the case. But he knows he's now going against orders from his superiors. He has to go solo for this investigation, and I won't be able to talk to him for a while, unless he decides to contact me. I really hope I haven't sealed my friend's fate as I did with the professor. If anything, he's armed, but still, this cult is really dangerous. Good luck, old friend. It's now the end of the day, and I decide to go back to the shop. I try my luck again with Malia, but it does not go well. I call her a few times, but her phone seems disconnected. Damn. This means another restless night with the same nightmare. My feeble and tormented sleep is suddenly interrupted early in the morning by a loud scream. It's Grace. As I join her in the shop, I see a grisly scene. A pattern has been drawn on the floor, and blood from a chicken has been smeared all over it. The chicken is still there, half dead. It is revolting and disturbing. I clean everything up and try to comfort Grace. It is clear that they know about me. They have been watching me. Considering that they know how to take care of people they don't like, I think this was just a warning message, since both Grace and me are still alive. While I try to calm Grace down, a letter is slipped through the letterbox. It's a message from Mosley. It seems many people in the police department and the city board are involved with this voodoo cartel. He needs to go deep undercover to investigate more. The envelope also contains the key to his desk. I might find something useful in it. Today is June 23rd, St. John's Eve. I'm sure tonight the cartel will hold a conclave to celebrate the most powerful night in voodoo. I have to be there. But where are they going to meet? I leave the shop and go to the police station. Maybe I can convince the officer at the front desk to let me into Mosley's office. Fat chance, I know, But you never know. I've been meeting him all week after all. As I enter the department, I sense something is off. I ask the officer if I can go inside Mosley's office, but he looks lost, as if under a spell. He mumbles something like, "There is no Detective Mosley in the department," and then goes back to what he was doing. What? Something is going on here. I go outside and notice some blood on the sidewalk and a dead pigeon. A voodoo spell. Now I'm being paranoid. I go into the side alley and force my way into Mosley's office through the window. I have to be quick. I open the drawer with a key and find a tracking device. That could come in handy. As I'm about to leave, I hear someone thumping on the door. It's the police officers trying to break in. They move and sound like zombies or something. I better get out of the office before it's too late. That was a disturbing experience. While driving around the quarter, trying to figure out how to use Moses' device, an idea forms in my head. From what I've learned about voodoo, various objects are brought when they hold these ceremonies. I'm pretty sure most of these objects come directly from the Voodoo Museum. If I attach the tracking bug to one of them, I will probably be able to trace the conclave location and join them. A bit reluctantly, I go back to the museum. Using the excuse of asking Dr. John some questions about St. John's Eve, I start looking around for a suitable object. A good one seems to be the small coffin by the door. If I remember correctly, it's called Seiki Madole. I have just enough time to place the bug before Dr. John unceremoniously pushes me out, saying he has to make preparations for tonight's celebrations. I bet he does. How can I make sure he brings the coffin along? Of course, I can leave my own message for DJ on Marie Laveau's tomb. I arrive at St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, and what do you know? There's a new message on the side of the tomb. I copy it down and cross-reference it with the one from before. There's some overlap, but some characters are new. The sense is clear though. DJ, keep eyes on GK, but do not harm. GK is me, I'm sure. Do not harm. The bastard tried to kill me. He must have missed the memo. Anyway, between the two messages, I have enough characters to leave my own message for DJ. So I write, DJ Conclave, tonight, bring Seiki Madole. I hope DJ reads the message this time. Now, the most important part is still missing. Where are they going to meet? The tracking device has a short range. I can't aimlessly wander around the city, hoping to end up in the correct area. Another thing I learned is that the cartel uses their other drummers to spread their messages. I bet they are broadcasting the location of their conclave right now. I go to Jackson Square and listen carefully to the drummer, using as a reference the book on rudder drums Grace found for me. It takes me a while to discern the rhythm and the various beats, but then I think I got it. The message is, call conclave tonight, swamp. That's Bayou St. John. I'll be there. There's only one final touch missing. I have to fully resemble one of their own. So I ask Grace if she can paint a snake on my chest, using the sketch I took of Crash's tattoo as a reference. She's not too happy to do it, because I tell her I'm going to a masked party with Malia, but in the end she reluctantly agrees. I'm not sure if she actually believed me though. Oh well, it doesn't matter. A few hours later, it's time to leave. I reach the bayou and take out the tracking device. There's a signal that brought the coffin. After wandering for a few minutes in the bayou, I finally reach the place of the conclave. It seems it has already started. I hear the drums and people chanting. I quickly remove my shirt, wear the crocodile mask, and join in. To no one's surprise, Dr. John is here, dressed as an eagle. A few moments later, the full celebration starts. A woman appears, very likely the priestess of the conclave, the Mamaloa. She's wearing a leopard mask and starts dancing frenetically, holding two bleeding chickens. Gross. The sound of the drums gets louder and louder. Something fills the air, like they sprayed a substance. I feel dizzy all of a sudden. All the noises around me mix into one anamorphic sound. Yet I can discern some distinct words the attendants are chanting. Tetelo, Tetelo, come take our bride. What? Tetelo, the voodoo priestess from Gunter's diary. I can't focus on my thoughts though. The chanting, the drums, and the suffocating humid air are too much to bear. Almost in a trance, I remove my mask and approach the Mamaloa, removing her mask too. Oh no, it's Malia. She recognizes me as well, but suddenly she loses control. The Loa, Tetelo, possesses her. In this state, Malia is not herself anymore. Malia, or rather Tetelo, looks at me and immediately senses the blood of my ancestor in my veins. Like a fury, she jumps onto me, trying to stab me with a ritual dagger she's holding. I manage to dodge a couple of swings, and then run deep into the swamp. While running, I hear Tetelo shouting, "I will find you, I will destroy you." My mind is confused. I've lost track of where I am, and I feel exhausted. Suddenly, I fall down and pass out. Some hours later, I wake up. I'm in my bed. What? Was it all a dream? As I look up, I see Grace looking at me. She saved me. She didn't believe the story about the costume party with Malia and followed me. Well, all things considered, it was not a complete lie. Anyway, somehow Grace managed to bring me back to the shop. God knows what might have happened to me if she hadn't been there. Thank you, Grace. It's all starting to make sense now. Since I started looking into these voodoo murders, I've been dreaming about Gunter and Tetelo like a premonition or a warning. Something deep and ancient has woken up in me. This witch hunting thing that's been in my family for generations. And Malia, oh God, she's the head of the cartel and a murderer. No, I can't believe it. It's Tetelo. Malia is just being used by that evil spirit. of a sudden, this voodoo case has become ripe with implications and deeply involves my family. I better call Uncle Wolfie and seek advice from the current witch hunter in charge. As Grace mentioned, I'm just stumbling through my destiny, and my very life is at stake. I tell Wolfgang about last night's events, and he is indeed worried. Things are worse than he thought. He fills me in about our family role as Schattenjägers, shadow hunters. That's the correct translation from German. This role has been bestowed upon us centuries ago. The family records go back to the 13th century, but it might be older than that. It is not known who gave us this role, but what matters is that all those stories about demons, vampires, witches are real, and it is our duty to protect humanity from them. Unfortunately, our powers and fortunes have drastically declined since Gunther lost the talisman 300 years ago. All the Schattenjägers since then have been trying to locate it, but failed. The events of last night, despite being disturbing, gave Uncle Wolfgang renewed hope that things could finally turn around for our family. He is convinced that Daedalos' power is augmented by the talisman, meaning the artifact must be with Daedalos' remains. But where? According to Wolfgang, there are two possible locations. The remains are either somewhere in New Orleans or have been returned to the tribe's homeland in Africa. Africa? I recall Professor Hartridge's findings and tell my uncle about the Agri tribe and their probable location in the Republic of Benin. Uncle Wolfgang is ecstatic. This is the best lead he has ever had in decades. The plan is clear. I'll see if I can find Daedalos' remains in New Orleans, but I must be extremely careful, while Uncle Wolfgang will use the Schattenjäger library to identify the exact location of the Agri tribe. He also extends the invite to join him in Rittersburg as soon as possible. After all, New Orleans is not a safe place for me anymore. I'll think about that. Where should I look for the remains of a long-dead voodoo priestess? The most obvious place is the Getty family tomb in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. I remember the door to the tomb was locked with an electronic mechanism, though. Well, I'll figure something out. To my surprise, the mechanism seems unlocked. I press the button, and yes, the door opens. As soon as the door opens, I hear a smashing noise, and when I enter, the only light is broken. It's dark, but luckily I have a flashlight with me. Time to open some drawers. Unfortunately, they all contain old and dusty bones of Malia's ancestors, but no talisman. Then I open a drawer with a strange symbol on it, and find, oh no, it's Mosley. They got him too. Seeing Mosley's body lying there, cold and lifeless, shocks me, and I let the flashlight slip from my hand. As I kneel to retrieve it, someone hits me on the head, and I'm knocked out. Some minutes later, I come to, pick up the flashlight, and look inside the drawer again. The body is gone. What the hell is happening here? Before leaving, I notice Mosley's wallet lying about. I pick it up. It's the only thing left of him. Quite shaken, I go back to the shop. Maybe it is indeed time I I go to Germany. As I enter the shop, Grace lets me know that my uncle called. It seems he found what he was looking for, and said it was time for him to do his duty, and that Schloss Ritter is now mine. That sounds ominous. Anyway, I'll have time to talk with him about this when we will finally meet in person. There's only one problem. I have no money to pay for the flight. Well, there's a solution. Mosley's wallet contains his credit card. Sorry, old friend, but it's for a good cause. Half a day later, I'm in Rittersberg, Germany, in the middle of Bavaria. Castle Ritter looks fantastic, at least from the outside. I'm wondering how high are the running costs for this thing. I'm greeted at the door by Gertie, my uncle's assistant, and to my surprise she informs me that my uncle is not home. Apparently he left in a hurry, without saying where he was going, but he gave her instructions to make me feel at home. I really hope she hasn't prepared any surprise voodoo ritual just for me. I bet Uncle Wolfie followed up on the lead pointing to Africa. I have to find out what he has discovered about the Agri tribe. In the next episode. A wheel within a wheel, just like Professor Hartridge said. That's where the Agri tribe is coming from. Uncle Wolfgang is convinced Tetelo's remains and the talisman are inside the sacrificial table. How can we open it though? It will require a human sacrifice, I'm sure. Grace, where are you? Oh no, they've kidnapped her. Bastards. I will save you, Grace, and Malia as well. Tetelo, this time you won't have the upper hand. Previously on Gabriel Knight. My life has been turned upside down. My dear Malia is the head of the Voodoo cartel, and they are after me. I'm now in Germany, trying to become a Schattenjäger, a shadow hunter. But my great uncle, who should be mentoring me, has disappeared. He is somewhere in Africa, trying to dig out our long-lost talisman. The only artifact that can protect us against evil. Without the talisman, I can't free Malia from Tetelo's grip and turn around my family's fortunes. Before we continue the story, remember to like and subscribe for more ASMR gaming content. I'm wandering around the castle trying to find clues on my uncle's whereabouts. I then notice a locked door in my uncle's room. Apparently it leads to the Schattenjäger library. Unfortunately, Gertie hasn't got the key, and besides, only anointed Schattenjägers can enter. My damn luck. So far I've been just cosplaying as one. I guess that doesn't count. Another interesting place is the castle chapel. It has a magnificent stained glass depicting St. George fighting against the dragon. Funny how I named my shop St. George's Books. Besides that, I noticed a series of drapes depicting a scene, or rather, a sort of ritual. Gertie confirms it is the initiation ritual of a new Schattenjäger. Oh well, I guess I know what I have to do now. I find all the tools needed around the castle and follow the instructions on the drapes. wash my hands, pour some salt in a bowl, spill some of my blood, cut a chunk of hair, recite the prayer from the scroll I found in Wolfgang's room, and finally I kneel at the altar like a penitent. A few minutes later, I hear a loud noise. It's working. Or maybe not. It was just Gertie deciding it was a good moment to vacuum the chapel. I'm tired and frustrated, so I decide to go to sleep. The night is restless, and I have a horrible nightmare. I'm glad that moving to the other side of the Atlantic did not change that. This time, though, the nightmare is wildly different. The dragon from the stained glass in the chapel comes alive and starts talking to me. It wants to know if I really want to be a Schattenjäger, and that if I decide so, then I have to change my ways. My old and selfish me has to die, so that a new man can be born from its ashes. That is all frightening and disturbing, but I have to find my uncle and defeat Titelo. So I look the dragon in the eyes and tell it I'm ready, that I'm not afraid of what's to come. The dragon starts laughing, then incinerates me. But does it? I'm still alive, but I feel lighter, like a heavy burden dragging me down has dissolved. The dragon disappears, and a key materializes in my hand. A few moments later, I wake up, all sweaty, and notice a key at the base of the bed. It's the key from my nightmare. Has Gertie brought it for me? Did it come out from the nightmare itself? At this point, I'm open to any kind of explanation. Anyway, I pick up the key and try it on the library door. It works. Time to find where Uncle Wolfgang has gone. The library is well stocked with books about sociology, archaeology, geography, religion, you name it. There's also a full section filled with Ritter family deeds and journals, detailing the various exploits of previous Schattenjägers. Fascinating. Uncle Wolfgang likely found the exact location of the Agri tribe using these books. But where to start? I notice a book about the Republic of Benin is out of place. A quick browse reveals recent handwritten notes and a highlighted section referencing another book about ancient cultures. I find it easily and start browsing. I spend the next 40 minutes jumping from one book reference to another, going through books about religion, sociology, and whatnot, until I finally end up with a book about archaeology. And what do you know? Roughly 50 miles south of Benin's capital is a sacred burial mound used by ancient tribes. There's also a picture of it. It's a double mound, with a larger circle and a smaller one inside it. A wheel within a wheel, as Professor Hartridge mentioned on the phone. Now I know where Uncle Wolfgang is. I go downstairs and show Gertie what I found, hoping that the Ritter family will pay for the trip to Africa. Well, no. Losing a talisman centuries ago meant the Ritters lost their power to fight evil and started to suffer financially. The upkeep costs of the castle are high, and important renovation works are needed So, long story short, I have to pay for the trip myself. Well, mostly will, as I use his credit card again. Sorry, old friend. A day later, I'm in Benin, right outside the burial site. I enter the outer wheel. All I see is overgrown vegetation and what look like mummified bodies lying on the floor. There's a massive stone door, and on its side, a stick with a serpent head carved on one end. As I move around inside the circle, I realize there's a locking mechanism keeping the door shut. But I quickly figure out what to do. There are some loose panels that I put back in place, and then I use the stick to activate them in the right sequence. And voila, the door opens. Unfortunately, this also activates something else. All those mummified corpses come to life and start chasing me. I quickly run, trying to make it through the door, but I end up cornered by the mummies. Then, all of a sudden, someone jumps out of nowhere. It's Uncle Wolfie. Using a torch, he is able to grab their attention. This allows me to reach the other side of the door and close it again. He quickly jumps and makes it inside the inner wheel before the door shuts down. He seems rather athletic considering his age. How old can he be? At least 80, I'd say. Uncle Wolfgang seems frail and tired. We slowly reach the center of the inner wheel and see a round stone table. It was probably used for rituals. The center has an indentation shaped like a bowl, as if it was used as a container of some sort. According to Wolfgang, they likely put there the freshly cut hearts of their victims. All around this table are carvings that narrate the story of the Agri tribe and the origin of their power. Centuries ago, a member of the tribe discovered this place. Once inside the inner wheel, he found a small idol irradiating power like a sun. The origin of the idol is unknown, but it seems ancient. Upon closer inspection, the sacrificial table seems to have a removable top. Wolfgang is convinced that Daedalos' bones are inside, along with the talisman. He feels its power, and I feel it too. No matter how hard we try though, the top lid does not move an inch. We conclude that only a sacrifice consisting of putting a heart in the central bowl will unlock the mechanism. Wolfgang suggests I remove the heart from one of the mummies that, thank God, went back to sleep once we closed the door. I'm not convinced that a mummified heart will do the trick, but we can try, I suppose. As I'm carving out the heart in the far back of the room, I hear a strange cracking noise behind me and a muffled groan. I turn around and I cannot believe what I'm witnessing. Uncle Wolfgang has used his Schattenjäger knife to cut his chest open. With his last bit of life, he leans on the sacrificial table, trying to fill the central bowl with his blood and the final beats of his heart. The scene is horrifying, and I can't do anything to stop him. It's too late. Wolfgang's final sacrifice has worked. The top lid becomes loose, and I can push it aside. Inside I see bones, but most importantly, the talisman. Finally, I have the means to destroy Titolo. But at what price? is nothing left to do here. When I get back to the capital, I inform Gertie about what happened and arrange for Wolfgang's body to be returned to Germany. Instead, I'll take a flight back to New Orleans. There's a score to settle. I'm back in the shop, and to my surprise, Grace is not in. But the door was open. My blood runs cold. They've taken Grace. I see a note on the desk from Malia. She says that Tetelo knows I have the talisman, and that, for the sake of me and Grace, I must return it and then leave New Orleans. She adds that she can't stop Tetelo. She's too powerful. So she's asking me to do as Tetelo says, because she couldn't bear to see me die. So I was right. Malia was forced to do all those horrible things by Tetelo. I have to stop that evil spirit and save her. As I'm reading the note, I hear some noises coming from the back room. But I'm ready this time. I have the talisman. It's not necessary though. It's Mosley. He's alive. Oh my god, finally some good news. It turns out he was investigating the Geddes tomb when he heard someone coming in. So he hid in one of the drawers. Thinking it was one of them, he knocked me on the head and left the tomb as quickly as he could. I'm so relieved he's alive. Oh dear, now I have a funny story about his credit card to tell him. I think I'll wait until this story is over. It's time to make a plan. We have to find the headquarters of the Geddes cartel, where they probably keep Grace, and find some evidence to present to the FBI. We can't ask for help from the local police. They are too compromised, not to mention the other local authorities. I have a hunch where the secret hideout might be, so I'm going to follow up on that. Meanwhile, Mosley will check on his contacts at the FBI. Luckily, I still have the tracking device with me, so we agree that I will leave the tracking bug at the entrance of the hideout, and Mosley will follow the signal. Time to get moving. If my intuition is right, the entrance of the secret temple is hiding in plain sight. Most of the activity of those Rada drummers is concentrated in Jackson Square. My bet is that the entrance is somewhere in St. Louis Cathedral. I move around the church for a while, looking for secret panels and switches, but with not much luck. When I enter one of the confessionals, I notice a hole in the wall that reminds me of the mechanism used in the burial mound. Luckily, I still have the serpent stick with me. And what do you know? It works. As I insert the stick in the hole, the confessional starts moving. It's an elevator. A few seconds later, I arrive at the secret hideout. Before stepping out, I leave the stick and the tracking bug in the confessional for Mosley. Hopefully, he'll manage to figure out what to do. The place is deserted, and for a second I admire the very modern look. It is definitely not like the burial mound in Benin, even though it has been designed to reproduce its structure and geometry. I move around very quietly. I check the various rooms, hoping to find Grace. In one I find animals in cages, goats, chickens, spiders, fresh supplies for rituals and spells, I suppose. I then enter what looks like the accounting department, and by the looks of it, today is everyone's day off. I quickly look around and find what I needed. A ledger detailing some of the illegal dealings of the Getty cartel. That will interest the FBI, I'm sure. I also end up in a storeroom filled with cleaning materials and some animal outfits. That could come in handy to avoid being recognized. I grab two, hoping Mosley will join me soon. I have no idea where I'm going, so I just enter random rooms, hoping no one is inside. In one of them, though, there is someone. It's Malia. I hide behind some furniture while she tries to communicate with Tetelo. She begs Tetelo to spare my life, but the spirit does not listen to her. The spirit is convinced that I will betray Malia, and I will try to kill her, like Gunther did with her centuries ago. Malia does not believe what Tetelo says. She trusts me, but Tetelo is immovable. Frustrated with being Tetelo's puppet, Malia runs away into a back room. You're right, Malia. I will never betray you. I will save you instead. I leave the room and try the next one. Finally, I find Grace. Just as I enter, Mosley shows up as well. Grace is unconscious, probably under a spell, but with the use of the talisman, I manage to wake her up. Now we need to come up with a plan. The idea is to let them bring Grace into the central room for the ritual. When Malia shows up, I will get hold of her before she's possessed by Tetelo. If all goes well, the talisman will protect us, and we will live in one piece, as they won't risk hurting the head of the Getty cartel. At least that's what I hope. While finalizing our plan, we hear the drum sounds coming from the inner wheel. The ritual has started. Mosley and I quickly wear our animal costumes, and Grace lies down, pretending to be asleep. A few seconds later, Dr. John appears. He's not pleased to see two strangers in the main guest room, so we quickly leave, while he grabs Grace. We're all gathered in the central circle for the ritual. Malia appears with her leopard mask, and oh no, she's already been ridden by Tetelo. We need a plan B, and soon. Malia slowly approaches Grace, who has been placed on the sacrificial slab, which is an exact replica of the one I found in the burial mound in Africa. I'm sure the idol giving power to the Gettys is hidden inside. I can't let Tetelo kill Grace, so I remove my mask and call out to Malia. Unfortunately, Tetelo has completely taken her over, and she can't hear me. Tetelo swings the ritual dagger to kill Grace, but luckily she's awake and dodges the knife. Dr. John quickly leans over and tries to grab her. Mosley is ready though. He takes out his gun and shoots Dr. John in the chest. He then reaches for Grace to make sure she's fine. Dr. John's blood spills on the sacrificial table, unlocking its its mechanism. The lid opens, revealing the idol inside, as I hoped. If I can reach it and break it, all this madness will be over. Tetelo, though, has different plans. She moves towards Grace and Mosley, casting spells to force me to give up the talisman to save their lives. There's only one thing I can do. I throw the talisman towards Mosley, and he manages to grab it. I then yell at them to leave the building and not to worry, the talisman will protect them. Indeed, it seems to work. Tetelo cannot get any closer to them, so they can safely leave. Unfortunately, this move leaves me completely at Tetelo's mercy. She quickly casts a spell on me, forcing me to kneel. She then grabs my throat with a clear intention of cutting it with a knife. I can barely move, but I can still speak, so I try to break Tetelo's hold on Malia by talking to her. It kinda works, in the sense that I can speak with Malia, but she can't control what her body is doing. Tetelo is too strong. Breaking through Tetelo's full control of Malia allows me to regain some mobility. While speaking to Malia, I slowly move towards the idol, and that's it. I finally grab it and smash it to the ground. Note for future evil gods, or whatever entity the Geddes communicated with. If you put some of your power in an idol, don't make it so fragile. It makes you lame. The moment the idol is broken, Tetelo's power vanishes, and Malia is free. As the evil spirit's power dissolves, so does the invisible fabric holding the secret voodoo temple together. The floor and walls tremble like there's an earthquake. Probably it is an earthquake. Everything starts falling apart, and big cracks open on the floor. Luckily, I'm in a safe spot, but Malia is in the middle of it. A huge hole opens right under her feet, and she falls. I quickly jump and grab her arm. I try to pull her up, but I can't. She needs to push herself up, or we won't make it. She looks up at me. She's happy that I didn't betray her, like Tetelo said I would. Her smile quickly turns to tears. She's aware she has committed atrocious things, and that until she's alive, Tetelo is alive. I try to pull her up with all my strength, but she moves her arm to get rid of mine. She slips from my hands and disappears into the void below. Her last words, "Goodbye, my love. It's over." A few minutes later, I'm outside with Grace, and we watch from afar as most of Jackson Square collapses. What has happened in the past 10 days has changed my life forever. I guess I am now a Schattenjäger, with great powers and responsibilities towards the others. Yes, me. I'm wondering if I'll be up for the task. I feel I just stumbled through this story with no actual idea of what I was doing. Luckily, it seems Grace might decide not to go back to university to pursue her PhD after all. I definitely need someone with her head in the right place to help me through this. What's going to be next? Vampires? Werewolves? Yeah, so it ends Gabriel Knight Sins of the Fathers. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I did playing it many times over the years. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more Gabriel Knight videos or this type of content. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care and stay relaxed.